What's going on, everybody? It's your man Louie T here with a brand new installment of the Louie T Network podcast. Hope your weekend was outstanding. Back to business. Mother's Day weekend is upcoming, but lots of NFL news coming down the pipeline. Um, we're still digesting the draft. We're going to finish that up. We started that process last week. Going to finish the other 16 teams in the league and going through their drafts with a fine-tooth comb today. Talk about how I felt about their draft overall. And then we can start transitioning to other conversations that I want to get to down the road this week, including teams picking up or declining fifth-year options on players. So I think that's a very interesting conversation that we will have at some point this week. But today is all about the draft and cleaning up what was left of the 2025 NFL draft. And we will do that today on the show. You're locked into the 501st installment of the Louie T Network podcast. It starts now. The Louie T Network is powered by MusicHead University. MusicHeads, classes in session. Turn me up. Enroll on YouTube now. Link is in the description. Who else could it be but me, your man, Louie T? Welcome to the 501st installment of the Louie T Network podcast. I, of course, am your set man, Louie T. Thank you for joining me. Hope your weekend was glorious. Mine was outstanding. Now it's back to business. Preparing for Mother's Day weekend, as I said at the top of the show. Got a little bit of shopping to do. Got to get moms a gift. Shout out to all of you out there who are moms. We'll be celebrating you all week, but we should be celebrating moms 365 days a year. What are we saying, right? This is the one time of the year that we actually focus in on it. So shout out to all the moms out there holding it down and keeping our world going. Society does not exist without women, without females who continue to give birth and produce life and all of that good stuff, that nurture and who raise these kids in a lot of instances to be the females and the males that they grow up to be. So big shout out to all the moms out there holding us down. So with that said, let's just get straight to the proceedings this evening. Y'all know what it is. Gem Droppin Session. Let me drop this gem on your melon. Open your mind. Let your conscience be free. You're now rolling with your man, Louie T double E. Let me open you up. Get you thinking a little bit. And like I told you before, it's all about the draft as we are going to go ahead and finish up our two-part series on the draft and breaking down every team's draft. We left off at the Chiefs. They were the last team, or really we left off at the Raiders. The last team that we did was the Kansas City Chiefs. So now we'll move to the Las Vegas Raiders. And I think this is the most fun draft of the 2025 NFL, period. I think of all the teams in the NFL, this one is the most fun and exciting draft. I can't wait to see how this turns out in terms of the production that they get out of these players on the field, how they utilize them. But if you're talking about names and athletes and all of that good stuff, this is a fun draft right here. This is the most fun and exciting draft I think any team had in the 2025 NFL draft. I'll explain myself here in a second, but let's just go through it real quick. Ashton Jeanty, the best running back in not only in this draft class, but I think the best running back to come out in the league probably since Saquon Barkley. He's that dynamic. He's that good. And, there was a lot of, scuttlebutt about where the Raiders going to take him. John Spytek came out before the draft and did the unthinkable. He actually talked about drafting Ashton Jeanty, how his son told him he needs to draft Ashton Jeanty. It all felt like a smokescreen, wanting someone to come up and take Jeanty off their hands at 6. That didn't prove to be the case. And maybe someone that they would have taken or someone that might have been one of their options, was already taken. But whatever the case may be, I thought it was the right decision. I get it, and this new philosophy of, if you're not ready to maximize a running back's carry, every single carry of his career in that rookie deal, then don't take him. I get that concept, and it's really one that has come out here of late and become sort of the I want to say the standard way of thinking about running backs in terms of taking them in the first round. I don't necessarily subscribe to that. I get the theory, but if you're a team like the Raiders, you don't really know what you're going to be. Yeah, you traded for Geno Smith, but you still have deficiencies on that roster. Take pressure off of Geno Smith and that pass game with a elite running back, in hopes that that puts you in a mix in a very tough AFC West division. I love the pick there. I didn't love this pick, though. This was the only one where I was like, yeah, there was too many better athletes, too many guys. Like, in a draft where I don't know if there were a ton of alpha number one true, wide receivers in this draft. I understand getting a guy that, by all accounts, is going to come in and be a really good, productive NFL wide receiver in Jack Bech. Love his story. Everyone's kind of gravitated towards that with his brother's situation in that tragic mass shooting, or I don't even want to know if I call it a mass shooting. It was a mass killing, right, in New Orleans on New Year's Eve. But Jack Bech is a number 2 receiver at best, and they need a number 1 in Vegas. And there were other guys on the board at the time of this pick that I don't know if they're going to ever be a number 1 pick, number 1 wide receiver, but they give you a better chance to see if you can unearth one than Jack Bech does. The upside with Jack Bech, to me, just isn't there. That said, really productive receiver, really good, and I think he's going to be really solid for them. I just still think you don't have a number 1 receiver, right? I don't think you have a number 1 receiver still. Darian Porter, love this pick. The upside here is crazy, with a 6'3" corner who's a former wide receiver who runs a 4.3 flat that, has all the traits you're looking for. Still raw at the position, obviously, having just made the switch a couple of years ago, but the intrigue is definitely there, and he fits the DNA profile of a Pete Carroll corner. We know Pete Carroll loves his corners tall, long arms, fast, and has speed and ball skills. He checks every single box, and I can't wait to see what his development looks like in that Pete Carroll defense. Third round, Caleb Rogers, offensive guard out of Texas Tech, because, yes, he's going to play guard at the NFL level. So looking to bolster the offensive line, nothing wrong with that. There, he should fit in relatively quickly. This is might be my favorite pick of their draft. Charles Grant was a guy that I just loved coming out of William & Mary at the tackle position. I was like, as a Commanders fan, if we're going to take a tackle in this draft after, the first 2 rounds, somehow he was there in the 4th round and they were still thinking tackle, this was the guy. I didn't think he would be there in a very sparse tackle class. There was no way he was getting out of the 2nd or 3rd round. I didn't think he'd get out of day 2. He did not. Love this pick, and I think he's a starting, caliber tackle in this league. Whether it's left or right will, remains to be seen. He was a left tackle at William & Mary, but we'll see where he ends up. I just feel like Glaze did okay last year, like for being pressed to end the service at right tackle. And so we'll see if they push him over to the right side or, what they ultimately decide to do at the left side. I believe their left tackle is going into the final year of his deal, not knowing if you want to re-up him. Obviously, you got a new general manager there who's going into his 2nd season. Spatek is brand new and going into his 1st year, because they've been switching, GMs out of there the last couple of years, it feels like. Do they want to move on from their left tackle? They've kind of wiped the slate clean, as you generally see with a new GM coming in. They've gotten rid of a lot of the guys that were there that were mainstays, and are replacing them with guys that they see fitting their, new system. And so I could easily see Grant being groomed to be their starting left tackle next year. We'll see. But Dante Thornton Jr., again, another fun player, man. 6'5", 205 pounds, runs a 4.3 40, can flat out fly. A guy that can absolutely take the top off of a defense, a guy you can get it to in space, and not like he's going to break a bunch of tackles but he can outrun angles, right? If you hit him with a slant in stride and he doesn't have to break stride, he can outrun angles, right? So we'll see if his effectiveness is maximized at the NFL level, with a lot of teams going to that too high, shell look, keeping everything in front of them. That could neutralize a guy like Dante Thornton Jr.'s effectiveness at the next level. But again, this is where you miss having a true number one. If there's not a guy I have to focus on, what's stopping me from every time Dante Thornton Jr. comes on the field to just make sure wherever he goes, just make sure 2 goes and somebody's over the top, right? There's no guy that stops you from being able to focus on him as soon as he comes on the field. So I don't know if they'll be able to maximize him in Vegas, but I just love the pick, right? I mean, who doesn't love a guy that's 6'5", that can run the way that he can and make the kind of plays that he can make, right? Tonka Hemingway, undersized defensive tackle. Really don't know what the hell his role is going to be at the NFL level. Is he going to be a defensive end? Is he going to be a defensive tackle? Don't really know. I just know he's athletic, and he's a guy that can help you up front. They'll figure it out wherever he ultimately is going to be. Maybe they'll move him around and use him as a little bit of a chess piece defensively, but he's going to have to find a way to carve out a niche for himself at the NFL level. He's going to have to put on more weight and become a real defensive tackle, maybe shed a few pounds, become a true defensive end. We'll see, right? We'll see how versatile he ends up being for them, but it's an interesting pick. Speaking of interesting and fun, J.J. Pegues, defensive tackle out of Mississippi, but this is a guy that was used as a fullback, a tight end, a read option quarterback, and yes, a defensive tackle, all at Ole Miss. He was a jack of all trades, and that's me using that phrase very, very lightly. He did everything there, as you can tell. They gave it to him in, fullback situations and short yardage. He was the lead blocker in certain situations. They threw him the ball out of the backfield as well. He did read option, quarterback keeps. and again, he played defensive tackle as well. So this is a guy that started out as a tight end, transitioned to the other side of the football, but because of that athletic profile from being an offensive player initially, they still saw value in using him that way. And I don't know if the Raiders are going to tap into any of that or not. They may just use him as a true defensive tackle. But in this league, we know that when you have those types of traits and capabilities, teams like to take advantage of that. We've seen the Ravens do that for years with a guy like, Ricard and others, where I think Justin Matlock in LA with the Chargers is another one of these guys, massive man playing offense that can catch the football, but was a defender. And so I wouldn't be shocked to see J.J. Pegues still get an opportunity to do some offensive things at the NFL level. Again, another fun pick. Speaking of fun, Tommy Millott was a guy that we talked about as Commanders fans. Commanders worked him out pre-draft process along with a few other teams. Cowboys was included in that mix. Raiders stayed away, and their general manager, John Spatek, said that he intentionally did not show any interest in Tommy Millott because he did not want to hint to anyone else that they were absolutely in love with this kid's game and were dying at an opportunity to get their hands on him, and that they did in the 6th round. This was a guy that was quarterback at Montana State, a winner. They called him Tommy Touchdown. This guy ran a 4.39 40 at his pro day, jumped, a ridiculous vert, just tested off the charts. Teams were really, really high on his athletic exploits. And yeah, he's going to have to make a transition to either running back or wide receiver. Most people think it's going to be wide receiver, but the traits are undeniable. He wants a chance. And a lot of people see him, and again, he's not as big and thick, as a Taysom Hill, but a lot of people see him as a guy that could potentially be a Taysom Hill type. Not, in the sense of Taysom Hill was a tight end, physical, special teams, all that, but Millott could be a return man, right? A punt returner, a kickoff return man. Millott can be a guy that you throw in there in some packages where he throws the football because you got that trick play ability. So he can do a lot of different things, and people see him as maybe one of those types of guys. We'll see. He may just turn out to be a Julian Edelman type, where he makes the transition from quarterback to wide receiver and just turns out to be a hell of a wide receiver at the NFL level with the ability to do trick plays and things of that nature. But love the pick. And again, another guy that's going to be fun to watch. Cam Miller, North Dakota State quarterback, is just a developmental guy. Look, basically, you're taking a 6'1" undersized quarterback with, college pedigree, but not much else. And you're just throwing him in the mix and seeing if he can be a solid, quality NFL backup for you. If he can't, you move on. No harm done, no harm, no foul done, right? No harm, no foul. And then Cody Lindenberg at the linebacker position to wrap up this draft. This is a fun draft, the most fun and entertaining draft, to say the least, of any team I've seen in the 2025 draft. And I'm looking forward to seeing what all these guys ultimately do. And remember, this is a brand new regime in Vegas. So what I'm telling you is these guys are making the roster for the most part. These guys, they drafted those players with the intent of turning that roster over and getting guys on the team that they believe in. So those guys are making the roster. So that's going to be a lot of fun. We move on to the Chargers. I thought they had a really good draft, man. And it was funny because the Chargers were right around the Commanders in terms of where their picks were in every round. And it seemed like they would take a guy that Commanders fans were at a very minimum, at least interested in. Not necessarily that was going to be the pick. Only one time it felt like that was going to be the pick. But Commanders fans were interested in Amari Hampton. I was not. I'm not a massive Amari Hampton fan, but he does fit what they do, and I think he's going to be a great addition to their football team. Trey Harris was a guy that Commanders fans were definitely interested in. If you're looking for a bigger body, physical receiver that also had vertical capabilities that would attack the ball in the air, that was the kind of guy you were looking for. Clearly, the Chargers love those types of receivers. This is why they just went back and got Mike Williams again for a second stint in Vegas, or excuse me, in LA with the Chargers. And, that's why they drafted QJ, another big guy, big frame, large catch radius. It didn't work out. And assuming that Trey Harris is the guy, he's going to be the replacement for him, right? Because I think the QJ experiment is over in LA. Jamari Caldwell, defensive tackle out of Oregon, really interesting guy, big physical space-eating defensive tackle. They obviously want to stop the run a little bit better, and these are the types of guys that can help you do that. This was another pick where Commanders fans were kind of like, yo, if he's there, that's the pick, right? He was, of all the guys that they took that you thought the Commanders might be interested in, this is the one that felt like, if he's there, this is the pick. And they took him every bit of 2 or 3 picks. So the Commanders had 128, they had 125. So they took him 3 picks before the Commanders were on the clock. This is a really good selection here in the 4th round. Kyle Kennard, I think he's a professional edge rusher right out of the package. You draft him and you turn him loose as a rookie. I wouldn't be shocked if he got you 6.5, 7.5 sacks in his rookie season. Like, I think he's built for the NFL game. He's rugged. He's rough. He's good against the run. He's got a nice little bevy of moves that he can utilize to get to the quarterback. He just knows how to play the game, knows how to rush the quarterback. I think he's gonna come in and immediately produce dividends for the Chargers. Keandre Lambert-Smith is an interesting guy, sort of an undersized speed guy that doesn't actually play to the time speed, but I'm guilty as charged. Hometown kid. He's from the city. Stand up, Norfolk, Virginia. Went to Maury High School. So I'm always rooting for dudes from the city. So started out at Penn State, went there for 3-4 years, transferred over to Auburn, finished up his career there. He's going to get an opportunity to play with Justin Herbert and company in LA. I'm rooting for the kid. Hopefully it turns out well for him. But there are deficiencies in his game as an undersized receiver. Despite the speed, you don't really necessarily see that show up on tape as consistently as you would like. But I think he has a chance to be like their new Josh. What's my man's name that went to Buffalo? Gosh, his last name was right on the tip of my damn tongue. He has a chance to be the replacement for him. And so we'll see. 5th round, solid. See what he ends up, turning into, right? Oronde Gaston II is the best receiving tight end in this draft class. I don't even think it's close, but he's not really a tight end. He's a big receiver, is what he is. So, um, yeah, you're getting a guy that, and what did I tell you guys? Like, if you're gonna run a Roman offense, you better have a pass catching tight end. Well, now they have a pass catching tight end. So mission accomplished, and he's gonna get a lot of looks. Like, no more Will Dissly as your lead tight end in that offense. That's not okay. That's not allowed. You're not maximizing the offense as it's constructed or called. Now you can with Oronde Gass in a second, because all he was built to do is catch the football, just like his daddy did 2 decades ago for the Miami Dolphins. This kid can catch football, period, end of discussion, and it's a great pick for the offense that they run. Don't ask him to block a soul, but you got other guys that should be able to do that. Branson Taylor, guard out of Pitt. R.J. Mickens, I love this pick at the end of the draft, 6th round, because I just believe in taking guys that have DNA bloodline ties to the NFL, like guys whose fathers played in the league for many years, because your dad is going to show you everything that he's learned. He's going to teach you all of the tricks of the trade, and you're going to be well schooled and just ready for the transition to the pro game, right? You may not have all of the, athletic attributes that your father did. You might not be as highly regarded as your father was, but you'll know how to play the game. And R.J. Mickens knows how to play the game. And he's a better athlete than people give him credit for. I actually think this is a really good pick here in the 6th round. So this is a good draft by the Chargers, man. This is a really good draft. These are the types of drafts that can push you from, wild card exit to, the AFC Championship game. This is the type of draft that can do that. If they hit on Amari and Hampton, if they hit on Trey Harris, if they hit on Kyle Kennard, if they hit on Oronde Gadsden, those are the types of players that take you from, fighting for a 6th or 7th seed to fighting for the AFC West crown and an opportunity to be maybe playing in the game to represent your conference in the Super Bowl, right? Like, these are big time adds to the roster at positions where they needed to add to the roster. So like that draft for the Chargers. Rams, short and sweet draft, 6 selections. And the Rams, boy, they know how to draft. They know how to draft, don't they? Man, this is a team that consistently doesn't have a 1st round pick. Go figure, they didn't have a 1st round pick this year. Now, obviously, they traded out of the 1st round. Every team had a 1st round pick coming into the draft. They traded out of it. So they will have probably an additional 1st round pick next year. We'll see if they keep that additional 1st round pick. We know how they love to trade 1st round picks for veteran players that can help them get over the top. So we'll see if they keep those 2 1st rounders, but they traded back out of the 1st round and ended up selecting Terrence Ferguson, tight end out of Oregon. They allowed the Falcons to come up into the 1st round and get, I want to say it was the edge out of Tennessee. So they moved back into the 2nd round and took my favorite tight end of the entire draft. This guy's going to be a stud in the NFL. Watch what I tell you. I wouldn't be shocked if we look back in this draft, which was loaded with top end talent at the tight end position. I wouldn't be shocked if we look back and Terrence Ferguson is the best of the group. It wouldn't shock me at all. And when you talk about the other 2, in particular, the 2 1st rounders, Colson Loveland and Tyler Warren, you're going to, if those 2 end up being what everyone expects them to be, don't be surprised if when you name them, you have to attach Terrence Ferguson's name to those 2 as well, because he's right in that mix with them. I think he's got that kind of talent. And going to this team in particular was great for him because they're going to throw him the football a ton, just like they did with Tyler Higbee. So love this for him. Love Josiah Stewart, right? Yeah, he's undersized at 6'1". I don't care. This guy is one of these dudes that just knows how to get to the quarterback, plays with this, tremendous energy and enthusiasm, and is around the football constantly. He'll fit right in with this Rams defense that was transformative last year. Like, they were as good as they were last year because of their defense, not their offense last year. Their offense wasn't great last season. It struggled, but their defense played really well. And adding a guy like Josiah Stewart is going to help that defense be even better potentially this year. This was the pick where I was like, I don't love it, right? Jarquez Hunter in the 4th round. I thought it was a bit early for him. But when you look at the body type and what he brings to the table, he fits like DNA match to what the Rams like at the running back position. I mean, look at all of their running backs, right? They're all like sub 5'10", like somewhere in that neighborhood. They just drafted Blake Corum, right? They already had Williams from Notre Dame. All of these guys are like 5'9", barely 5'10", if they're 5'10". And they're like bowling, they're like little fire hydrants, right? Smaller guys that don't have top end speed. Corum doesn't have top speed. Williams doesn't have top speed, but Hunter does. That's the difference here. Is he's got the same build, same mold as those guys, just faster. And I think they were looking for an upgrade in speed there, and they're going to get it here in Jarquez Hunter. And boy, can he run through some tackles too, man. He's physical, just like they like him at the running back position. Ty Hamilton, an ascending defensive tackle out of Ohio State, like this pick to go with the guys that they drafted last year along that defensive line, and also the guys that they have added along that defensive line over the last 3 years or so. It's a really talented group. He's a talented football player. You add him to the mix. It's a good pick in the 5th round. Pooh Paul, junior linebacker, makes a ton of sense for them too. Here, athletic linebacker that is always around the football, makes plays, does what he's supposed to do, very assignment oriented. He has the makings of being a green dot guy for them, potentially in the future. So would not shock me at all if he ends up being a big time piece for them at the linebacker position. Kanata Mumpfield is not a guy that I really like at the receiver position, but that's a 7th round pick. I prefer height, weight, speed specimens at the end of the draft. A guy you just take a flyer on that has tremendous traits, but not necessarily the production you're looking for. Maybe they just made a positional switch not too long ago. You have to be able to look at them and see projections. This is a guy, I kind of know what he is already, and I don't really see him being that much of a difference maker. Undersized, not very fast. There's a lot of things that just don't jump off the page. I mean, but he may end up being a good receiver for them. That's what the Rams seem to be able to do, find diamonds in the rough. Just don't think that's going to be Kanata Mumpfield, but I could be wrong. But again, really solid draft. Love Ferguson, love Stewart. I think Hamilton is a really good player. Jarquez Hunter fits, even though I thought it was a little early for him. Pooh Paul fits what they need at the linebacker position. So, to me, really solid draft. And the Rams, this is the thing, and I always talk about this when you talk about teams who draft well, they know what they're looking for and how guys fit into their program. And that's what they just did, was they drafted a bunch of guys that fit in their program. So yes, I do think that's a good draft for them. Miami Dolphins. So clearly you could see what the emphasis was in this draft for the Dolphins. Beef, right? They wanted to get bigger on both sides of the line of scrimmage, because what's the prevailing thought? Like, what do people say about the Miami Dolphins? They're soft, right? They're soft. You can run on the Dolphins. The Dolphins are a team that can run the football, but you can get after their quarterback. They're not physical in between the tackles. They want to run outside with all that speed, but they can't beat you up in between the tackles, right? Everything needs to be outside on the perimeter. They're a soft team, right? That's the right now. That is the assumption. That is the stigma that is attached to the Miami Dolphins. And until they change that, that's what it is. Well, this is the type of draft that they're looking to try and start to change that perception, right? Kenneth Grant, love him, out of Michigan. He was outstanding on that defensive line, along with the Mason Graham, who went 5th overall, I believe, to the Browns. So those two were a tag team up front that they were just damn near unblockable. He's fantastic. Love him. Knew he was going to go early in this draft. And if he didn't go here, I didn't think he was getting past Arizona at 16. Jonah Savaiania, the guard out of Arizona. I think he has a chance to be one of the best guards in this year's draft class. He'll be up there. You know, Tyler Booker and the Ohio State guard both went in the first round. I think Savia. I knew I was going to jack his name up. Let's just call him Jonah S. He's going to be up there in that conversation when we look back at this draft and we talk about the guards. This dude is big. He's physical. He's a man mover. He's got enough athleticism to get to the second level, enough movement skills to be an above average pass protector. You can't bull rush him. I think he's going to be really good for them in Miami. Jordan Phillips, defensive tackle out of Maryland. So the thing that's going to hurt the Dolphins, I believe, in this draft is if you look at their draft, there's a bunch of blanks here. They go from the first and second round to no picks until the fifth in a draft where the money in this draft was rounds 2 through 4. You had no picks in rounds 3 or 4. That's going to hurt them because now you're basically drafting a bunch of guys that are depth in a draft that was built for you to find starters. So like now you got to roll the dice with a bunch of these dudes and hope that they turn up nice for you, right? It's not a great position to be in. But again, what do? They go and try to find more beef up front with Jordan Phillips out of Maryland. They go take a Jason Marshall Jr. who has all the traits, right? All the traits. He looks the part of an NFL starting caliber corner, but something's missing with him. He's sort of aloof out on the football field. I don't think he's a dog. I don't see that mentality in him. But the traits are there. If you can find a way to pull it out of him, great. The likelihood is you won't, right? Which is why he was here in the 5th round to begin with. That and some injury concerns. Dante Trader Jr. out of Maryland, intriguing player at the safety position, has the speed, has the play mentality, you know, will come down and hit you, does take some reckless angles at times. But all in all, he could end up being a really good player. Remember, they lost one of their safeties, Javon Holland, in free agency. So I'm not telling you that Dante Trader Jr. is going to come in there and fill that void, but he is a guy you throw in the mix. He'll help you on special teams to begin with, and then you see if he can develop and ultimately get on the field in some way, shape, or form. Ollie Gordon II is what I was talking about, them getting more physical, right? We know all of their running backs. All of them are speed. They could field a track and field team, a 4x1 team at the running back position. Hell, throw the receivers in there. And who's beating the Miami Dolphins track team, right? Nobody. But again, this is where they struggled. They didn't have any physical runners, any guys that could be enforcers. Now you have one potentially, and Ollie Gordon II out of Oklahoma State gives you a different type of back. All they had was speed. They didn't have a change of pace. You got the first and second down back, but you lack the change of speed, right? The guy that can hit the home run. They got it in the reverse. They got all these guys that can hit home runs, but nobody that can be that first and second down physical hammer. Now they do in Ollie Gordon II. Quinn Ewers fell down draft boards dramatically. I thought he was better than some of the guys that went ahead of him in this draft, but apparently his interviews weren't the best, and injury concerns and things of that nature, and his inability to get better were all reasons that were cited as to why he fell. I can't understand why he fell this far back, but I'm not the biggest Quinn Ewers fan. I'm not going to sit here and act like I'm caping for him, but to be a 7th round pick when we saw guys go ahead of him like Dylan Gabriel in the 3rd, to me is somewhat absurd. But that said, this is a great spot for Quinn Ewers. If you're Quinn Ewers, yeah, you're pissed you went in the 7th round. It's not as much money you're putting in your pocket. At this point, I would have rather been undrafted so I can pick my team than be drafted to a team in the 7th round. But if you're going to get drafted in the 7th round as a quarterback and you think you've got a chance to make it in the NFL, you shouldn't want to go anywhere but Miami. Right? Tua's one more hit. And again, we're not hoping this on this man, but Tua's one hit away from you being the permanent starter in Miami. If you can go in there and show those guys that you're capable, like that is where you want to be. If there's one quarterback situation that's unstable because of injury concerns, it's Miami's and the Saints. But this is a great spot for him. And his skill set kind of matches that of Tua's. And doesn't have the biggest arm in the world, plays with a lot of anticipation, can be very accurate with the ball when he's got space to operate. This is the type of offense that he can thrive in because he's not a playmaker. He's not a difference maker at the quarterback position. This is a great spot for him. It really is. Zeke Biggers, we talked about the Dolphins wanting to get Biggers in the trenches. They do it again with a 6'5", 6'6", 300 and 30-pound behemoth out of Georgia Tech. So, yeah, this draft was all about beef and getting bigger, and the Dolphins did exactly that. We'll see how they execute with these players. Moving forward, Vikings had a bread, eggs, cheese, milk type of draft. So you get in, you get out, get what you need, and you move on, right? So Donovan Jackson in the first round. We talked about the guards, the two guards that went in the first round. Well, three if you count Gray Zabel. But we talked about Jackson and Booker were the two guys that we knew were going to come off the board. Zabel also came off the board as the third guard in the first round. But Donovan Jackson, physical. I thought, to me, he's more talented than Booker. Booker's somewhat one-dimensional to me. Yeah, he can be a good pass protector, but he's not the athlete that Jackson is. I think Jackson, overall, his athletic profile is better, but we'll see. So I love this pick for the Minnesota Vikings. Ty Felton in the third. I am not a Ty Felton fan. Too inconsistent with his hands. He's already light in the pants. And so there's things that were working against him, but he can run. And if you like speed, you like Ty Felton. But again, not my necessary cup of tea. And I thought with some of the receivers that were available here at the third round, I didn't feel like Ty Felton was worthy of this selection, to be honest with you. But again, we'll see how he turns out. I know a lot of people who are massive Ty Felton fans. I'm just not one of them. Terrion Ingram Dawkins. I want to talk about a guy whose arrow is pointing upwards. This is a dude that just didn't play a lot of football early on in his career. Just started to really scratch the surface towards the end of his collegiate career. And if they can coach and they can get the most out of this dude has so much talent, man. He played up and down that Georgia defensive line. And I'm interested to see what they decide to do with him because he's kind of a tweener from a size perspective. But, man, is he very, very athletic. And he's just raw, right? He's just raw. Doesn't know where the ball is half the time. You know what I mean? Misdirection gives him fits sometimes. But when he can lock in, when he sees it, when he goes, he can win across the face of a guard or a center, right? There's a spin move that he utilizes as well, a secondary spin move. There's things that you see with this guy where you go, man, if put in the right hands and this talent is cultivated, he could be a problem 3 years down the road, right? Kobe King, kind of a throwback linebacker, 6'1", 200 and almost 40 pounds, like 236 or so, 237. Physical, gets to the ball, sees it, goes. Again, athletic limitations, not the fastest guy on the field, but you're looking for a first and second downhill thumper. He's the kind of guy that you're looking for. So I think that's the kind of role he will fill for the Vikings. And then Gavin Bartholomew, tight end out of Pitt. I actually like his movement skills. Think he can catch the football. He competes as a blocker. He's not like, a difference maker necessarily there. He's more of an inline wide tight end than he is a detachable U, or someone you separate from the line of scrimmage and flex him out. But he can do that, right, if you need him to. But he's more of an inline wide tight end, which is what they kind of utilize in the Vikings offense. And they already have a guy that they can detach from the line of scrimmage as a U. What's the name of the tight end from TJ Hawkinson? So he'll come in here, he'll compete, and we'll see what Gavin Bartholomew is able to do. It's a solid pick late in the draft. So it's an overall solid draft. Not necessarily the biggest needle moving draft. If you're a Vikings fan, this one doesn't necessarily get you all excited, but we'll see what ultimately comes from that draft. Patriots, I thought this was one of the better drafts of the 2025 NFL draft overall. A lot of players here. I mean, obviously, they're starting anew, right? It's a new era in New England. They're starting over. Last year kind of felt like a hiccup, so to speak. Like, all right, the transition away from Belichick was a little bit funky and clunky. This feels more sustainable. It feels more real. It feels like a real reset of that organization, and I think they did it the right way. Um, Obviously, going out and getting Mike Vrabel, who I think is an excellent coach, and then now filling up the cabinet with some talented players. And I actually thought they had a really good. They overpaid in some instances, but they had to do what they had to do. But they got better in free agency, and now you had this draft class, and I like you can't just look at the Patriots as 2 wins now. Like this isn't last year for sure. Um, Will Campbell, best tackle in this draft class. The shorter arms were the only thing that really um, presented any concerns. Uh, his arms somehow magically got like a ½ inch longer at his pro day. Go figure. But if the short arms are something he can get past, he'll be um, one of their bookend tackles at the left side. If he can't cut it at left, maybe they can put him over at right. But I do envision tackle being a part of his future at the NFL level. Worst case scenario, if the short arms become too much of a problem to overcome, just kick him inside, and he'll make a fantastic guard. But tackle is definitely in his future. He's got the skill set to be able to do it. Travion Henderson was a guy that I think every fan of every team loved during this draft process. He was probably one of the fan favorites of most teams, wanting a home run hitting running back with the ability to pass protect and do the third down things, catch it out of the backfield, all that good stuff. Um, he's gonna thrive in New England. They really don't have a dude at running back. Like they got stuff at running back. They don't have a dude. So he's gonna thrive in New England at the running back position. Kyle Williams offers them legitimate game-breaking speed at the receiver position, the ability to go get the deep ball, something that Drake May did well in college. So this guy gives them instant speed on the outside. Another one of these guys, hands aren't always A1 official, but if you give him an opportunity to get one-on-one on the outsides, look out, he can win and win big. And so that gives them an infusion of speed, something that they really truly lacked in New England the last 2 or 3 years at the wide receiver position. Jarrett Wilson, center prospect out of Georgia, again, 1-year starter. The arrow is pointing upwards for him. Does he need to get functionally stronger? Yes. But can he move with the best of them? You bet. And I think they just love what he brings. And the fact that he still is growing as a football player gives them all they need to see in terms of projecting him to be a 10-year starter for them. So like this pick, Craig Woodson, the safety out of Cal. First of all, Cal was pumping him out this year in the secondary. And I ran into him pretty much on accident. I was watching Noel Williams and Teddy Buchanan, the linebacker, and I ran into Craig Woodson. And I'm like, who the hell is this dude that just keeps flashing? So this is a guy that he can do just about everything, man. He's great athlete, can play down around the line of scrimmage. He's not a thumper, but he gets guys on the ground. That's all I care about. He can play in coverage. He can play over the slot. He has good instincts, good football IQ, right? He just understands where to be, attacks the football in flight. There's not a lot of holes in his game other than he's not 6'2", right? He's not 215, but whatever. Like, I just think he's a good football player, man. And I just think, Mike Vrabel will be able to maximize what a Craig Woodson can do for that defense. Joshua Farmer, he looks like a New England Patriot defensive tackle, right? This is a big dude, physical, long arms, and I think they're going to utilize him the way that he needs to be utilized. There's nothing really that stands out about him, but he's big, He's physical, stand stout at the point of attack. I think they'll know how to utilize him. That, like I said, he fits what the Patriots do on that defensive front. They don't usually get flashy defensive linemen who win off the snap. They get space eating, physical guys that can take on double teams, guys that can stand up a single blocker and two gap if need be. He fits that profile. So you know how I felt about Braden Swinson. This is a steal in the 5th round. Again, I could be wrong, and the league could be right about Braden Swinson. I just thought that this guy has natural pass rushing ability. And so I just saw a guy that, with continued seasoning and opportunities, he could turn into a real problem at the NFL level. They get him in the 5th round. I think this is absolute larceny. And I think they got themselves one here in the 5th round. So I think that's an incredible pick. Andres Bergales, place kicker out of Miami, was probably the most heralded kicker in the draft. So I talked about this as a Commanders fan and a team that was interested in acquiring a kicker at some point, whether it be via draft pick or directly after the draft. I said that there were certain teams that needed a kicker. New England was one of them. Tennessee was another one, right? So you had to look out for those teams drafting a kicker. The Patriots obviously did pull the trigger on Bergales in the 6th round. And so I think that might have been the only kicker the Commanders, and some other teams that were interested would have been willing to spend a pick on. Once he was gone, only 2 kickers were drafted this year. He was the first one, and I think he might have been the best one too. And then you get 3 7th round picks. Julian Ashby, your long snapper, may actually be the only one that turns out to be a major contributor for you. The other 2, you just throw a dart late in the draft, you see what happens. But you just released your long-time long snapper. So Ashby not only is going to make this team, he's going to be your future long snapper for the foreseeable future, should he work out. So this is a really good draft, man, by the Patriots. Again, first year of Mike Vrabel in New England, and I think they went out and got themselves a hell of a draft class to come in here and have him try to compete in year 1. So thought that was a really well executed draft by a team that I think was the worst roster last year. You can no longer make that case for the New England Patriots. They do not have the worst roster in football anymore. That distinction goes to someone else. We got to figure out what roster that is after, all the smoke has cleared and, the dust is settled and the smoke is cleared after this offseason with free agency and now the draft. We probably can now look somewhere else to see whose roster is the worst. Speaking of worst rosters, I mean, Saints have to be somewhere in that mix. It's not a great roster in New Orleans, and this actually is a good draft. It's not a great draft by any stretch of the imagination, but it's a good draft. Kelvin Banks Jr. became a necessity. Obviously, they whiffed on a former 1st round pick that they did not pick up the 5th-year option on here recently. I forget his name. I remember I liked him coming out. I just liked his demeanor, right? He's just a physical dude, played through the whistle. And he ended up doing that in the NFL, but it didn't end up being really good, right? But anyway, they need a tackle, right? Whomever's playing quarterback, whether that's Derek Carr or someone else, they need to be able to protect that guy. So Kelvin Banks Jr. made a lot of sense. Tyler Shuck, this is one of the more interesting picks, to say the least, of day number 2. He ended up being the 3rd quarterback taken in this draft class, obviously behind Cam Ward and Bo Nix. Jesus, I always call it Jackson Dart, Bo Nix, Jackson Dart. And I don't think we expected him to be the 3rd quarterback taken, but there were a lot of people who loved Tyler Shuck and what he could potentially be. And he's interesting because, first of all, he's a 7th. I've never seen anyone play 7 years of college ball. That's the first. With these COVID babies, you get 6-year guys. I've never seen 7. Now, 3 straight years of injuries cutting his season short at Texas Tech. This man started at Oregon. Keep in mind, he was a part of the same recruiting class as Trevor Lawrence. Think about how long Trevor Lawrence has been in the NFL. He was at Oregon with, as a backup, Justin Herbert. Think about how long Justin Herbert has been in the league, right? These guys are on second contracts, mind you, okay? He was at Oregon for 2 years. Then he was at Texas Tech, or he was at Oregon for 3 years. Then he was at Texas Tech for 3 years, all injury-marred years. And then he transferred to Louisville for his final year where he broke out. And he's got all the traits, but this guy's 26 years old at the quarterback position. Yes, age is a problem at quarterback. Like running back, I don't care how old you are at running back, right? Quarterback, yeah, I do care. Even though, if you can stay healthy, which he hasn't been able to do. But size, athleticism, arm talent, he's got all of it. So I can understand why somebody would fall in love with him. I can understand, totally understand. I get it. Can he stay healthy, and can he continue to develop and grow? We'll see, because he makes some questionable decisions on tape, and the injuries are a concern for me. But we knew the Saints were going to be interested at quarterback. We talked about them a ton because we tried to connect them to Shedeur Sanders. Obviously, that was not a good connection, but we knew they were interested in a quarterback with the Derek Carr saga. We knew they were taking one, and Show ended up being that guy. Vernon Broughton out of Texas, interesting defensive tackle. You just got to realize that the defensive tackles that came out of Texas this year, they just don't have a lot of starting experience because they played behind Trevondre Sweat and the other defensive tackle that I want to say the Rams took in the first round last year. So they played behind those two guys. And they just get a lot of opportunities. Really, this was their one and only opportunity to start was this year. So, but he's got a guy with some traits. He's big, he's physical, got some long arms. We'll see, what he turns out to be for the Saints. But he's stout in the middle of that defense. Jonas Sanker is a very intriguing prospect out of Virginia. Good size for the safety position, good athleticism, will come down and strike you in the run game, can run with guys and match guys in the slot. Just an overall really solid football player. Does take some reckless angles at times, can be susceptible to double moves and things where eye discipline needs to be at its best, where it isn't always with him. But we're talking about a really good football player here in Jonas Sanker in the 3rd round. Danny Stutzman, linebacker out of Oklahoma, feels like a really good linebacker in the making, like a guy that's going to be solid, solid 8 to 10 year NFL career, will, do the dirty work, won't necessarily be, a Pro Bowler, but he'll be one of those cog players that, consistently helps your defense run and function the way that it's supposed to. Quincy Riley, guy that had some up and down play in his collegiate career. 2023 was probably his best year of work. Went back to school in 2024. Didn't have as successful a season, but, still showed flashes of why he could be a good NFL corner. The athleticism is definitely there. There's some ball production that's there. It's just kind of working out some of the kinks of his game. If you can do that, you may ultimately find yourself with a quality starting NFL corner in Quincy Riley. This is the steal of the draft for you guys. If you're a Saints fan, you just drafted Alvin Kamara 2.0. And I said this in my pre-draft process. I said that the Saints draft, I said that Devin Neal is Alvin Kamara. He's Alvin Kamara. And teams are going to sleep on him just like Alvin Kamara got slept on because he doesn't run fast. Ran a 4.58. That's going to turn teams off, right? He didn't have any necessary, he didn't have any trait that stands out above his contact balance. That's the one that I was like, man. And I just watch him run and I watch the way he plays and I'm like, yo, he's Alvin Kamara. And I don't know why other teams didn't see it, but they didn't see it with Alvin Kamara either. But for him to fall to the 6th round, pretty interesting. I knew it was going to be a day 3 pick because of the speed. That eliminated him from being a day 1 or 2 selection. And I thought, okay, no worse than 5th. You get him in the 6th. This is a great pick, and I'm just telling you right now, this dude's a stud. He's going to be a stud for you. I love this pick, and this is the one you're going to come back and say, okay, yeah, we got us one right here. Montevallo, the tight end from UCLA, he's interesting. 6'6", 260, big guy, can run, can catch. Had a breakout year this year from a pass catching standpoint, which I think got him drafted. Without it, he would not have been drafted. For his size, I would like to see him be a better blocker, right? Because that's what's going to ultimately keep him in the league, because he's not a good enough athlete to survive just based off of his pass catching prowess. But at that size, that's good NFL tight end size. If he can block, if he can develop himself into a blocker, he catches it well enough that he could be like a TE2 in this league. Right now, he's going to fight for his life to make an NFL roster because he doesn't block well enough. And without that component, he's not good enough as an athlete to just survive as a pass catching threat, right? So if he can figure out how to block and be consistent in that way, there's an NFL roster spot with his name on it for the next 8 to 10 years. If he can't, he could be out of the league in 2 or 3 years. So, and then Fidel Diggs in the 7th. This is the type of pick I love in the 7th round, right? Take a height, weight, speed specimen, guy that was a 3-time captain at Texas A&M and then Syracuse. A guy that has athletic profile, that has a really good athletic profile. The production is solid, but he has a lot of holes in his game. But again, if you can, minimize those, right? Maximize the things that he does well, put him in space, allow him to chase, allow him to get after the quarterback, continue to help him hone in on becoming a better rusher. There's traits here to work with. So I love this pick in the 7th round. I love it. It's a solid draft for the Saints. I love Devin Neal in the 6th round. I think Calvin Banks is going to be an immediate plug-and-play starter in the 1st round. After that, it's just like, okay, let's see what you got. All right, let's see what you got. You got a lot of stuff here. If Tyler Shuck turns out to be really good, then this is a home run draft. If he doesn't, then you're relying on all the other subsequent pieces that you selected to kind of bring this draft up. But if Shuck can turn out to be really good, then you hit it out of the park, right? So that's got to be your hope. All right. Going on to the New York Giants. 7-player draft. Largely in love with what they were able to accomplish here. Obviously, Abdul Carter, number 3 overall. We already know what that is. I'm more disappointed in his inability to pick a damn number and stop trying to take numbers from dudes that already had their numbers retired. These young guys make me sick with that shit. Like, it's a reason the number is retired. Don't put a legend of the game in an awkward position. I'm glad LT told him, man, get the hell out of my face with that bullshit. Go forge your own path, right? Now he's over here, and quarterbacks are a lot less confrontational and combative. They're more likely to give up their shit if you press them. Like Phil Simms is already like, if he wants 11, I don't mind him having it. Like, nah, Phil, you run a Super Bowl with that shit. That's your number. You keep that. Let him go find a different number, right? But quarterbacks will come up off that shit. Like Warren Moon, I love Warren Moon. And in terms of black quarterbacks, he's one of those dudes that was sort of a pioneer who paved the way for black quarterbacks to be recognized the way that they are today in today's NFL. If you've never seen the documentary History of the Black Quarterback, you need to do yourself a favor. It's like a 3 or 4 part series on Amazon Prime. Go watch it. Like Warren Moon had to go play in the damn CFL because they told him he wasn't going to be a quarterback in the NFL. And Warren's like, what are you talking about, bro? Do you know how prolific I was in college? And y'all trying to tell me I'm not? All right, well, fine. I'll go to the CFL and light that shit up. And he did. And then he finally came back to the NFL and then lit that shit up. He shouldn't have given Cam Ward his number. That one was iconic in Houston, took them to the playoffs a bunch of times. No, they didn't win anything of substance, but still, he should have kept that. That's his number. Cam Ward, he had 7 before he was 1. Go back to 7. Go back to 7, right? So that's the only thing I'm upset with Abdul Carter about. Go find a damn number, bro. Stop trying to take Legends of the Games numbers, unretire them so you can wear the shit. Because here's the thing. If we knew, like, if we had a crystal ball and we knew you were going to be nice, maybe I'd be like, okay. But you could take the number and disgrace it. That's not okay. It's not okay. I don't think he's going to disgrace anything, but just still go find your own damn number. He's a stud, though. Jackson Dart, just like I talked about with the Saints, Giants traded back up into the first round with the Texans to draft Jackson Dart. He is the centerpiece of this draft. If he works, then this is a tremendous draft. If he doesn't, now you're relying on all the other pieces of this draft to make up for the fact that you selected a quarterback in the first round in which you gave up draft capital for next year's draft in addition to this year's draft to get. And if he doesn't work out, then it's a major whiff. And now you're going to need the rest of the draft to pick up the pieces and carry the weight of not hitting on the quarterback. Because if you hit on the quarterback and don't really hit on the rest of the draft, who gives a shit? But if it happens the other way around, it's a big deal. But this is a really good draft, and Dart is a part of that. He's got arm talent, he's got athleticism, and I think that was the reason why they took him over, the other quarterbacks, is because we know what kind of an offense they want to run in New York, and it's funny because we're not even sure if Brian Daboll is going to be here to even coach this kid, right? But they took him based off of his traits and how he would fit in a Brian Daboll offense. We've seen Daboll at his best is when he's coaching a Josh Allen, Daniel Jones type, right? Where you've got the athletic component as a real threat to keep it and run. That's when his offense is at its best. Dart is obviously a better, more natural passer of the football than Daniel Jones. And so he still brings you some of that athletic profile, not as good an athlete as Jones or Josh Allen, but he does offer you athleticism with the ability to throw the football, throws a gorgeous deep ball. He's going to be interesting. We'll see, when he finally is able to get on the field, because if everything works out the way that they intended to, he shouldn't see the field at all this season. If he does, that means the season has gone pretty much disastrously, and the likelihood is the general manager and which is the guy that selected him, and the head coach who selected him won't be here. So again, you're putting him in a really tough spot. Darius Alexander, again, another one of these guys, arrow pointing up. All right. Late bloomer in the process, really just figuring it out, but you can see this guy is oozing with athleticism in a 300-pound frame, and he has a chance to be a real disruptor. And playing next to Dexter Lawrence, where all the attention will be on Big Dex, this is a dude right here that could possibly come in here and absolutely feast on opposing offensive lines if he continues his ascension. That Senior Bowl was dominant, and we saw what he was able to do his final year in Toledo. The arrow is pointing up, and if he continues to grow and develop next to Dexter Lawrence, yikes, look out. Cam Scatterbo, running back out of Arizona State, really polarizing player in this draft. But this guy can play football, man. No, he's not fast, but he's physical, good contact balance, great contact balance. What am I saying? Great contact balance. Can do a little bit of everything. It's what they need at the running back position. They didn't have a lead guy. They had a bunch of complementary running backs. Tyrone Tracy is a great complement to Cam Scatterbo. Tyrone Tracy is not a 3-down back, right? Or not a first and second down back. They had a bunch of guys that probably were change of pace guys. Now they have a true first and second down running back. And I think this makes their backfield complete, right? So good pick there. Marcus Bow out of Purdue is he I think he's going to be a guard. It's essentially what I think. I think he's going to be a guard. And while he played tackle at Purdue, I think his position that most people view him as is a guard. He'll kick inside, and that's where he'll have to make his living at the NFL level. And I think he can do that. We'll see if he's physical enough because he hasn't played guard in like 2 years. So that's what made his evaluation so tough, I think, on people was that you got to go back to like 2022 to watch him play guard because he's been playing tackle. And is he physical enough to play with those dudes inside? Like tackle, you don't have to be the strongest guy in the world, right? Because you're going against edge rushers and guys that aren't 315, 20, pounds. You go inside, now you're dealing with grown ass men. And so can he handle that? They're not sure. They're gonna have to find out. He's not the biggest guy in the world himself. He's barely over 300 pounds, right? You're talking about a 304, 305-pound offensive lineman. So can he handle the interior offensive line duties? Only one way to find out. I think this is a steal in the 7th round. Thomas Fidone, the 2nd. I thought he would be gone somewhere in the 4th, 5th round. To get him in the 7th round, to me, is a steal. This dude is really talented. I thought he was one of the best players on that Nebraska offense this past year. And I think you can line him up in line. I think you can line him up as a U, detach him from the line, and let him be split out into the slot. And he can function in as a wing. There's not many places you can't put him on the field and athletically have him hold up. I just, based off of what they were able to do with him in Nebraska, and thought they could have done more with him. And then what the Giants did at the tight end position last year, drafting the kid out of Penn State, I think they got a nasty 2 tight end set now with Thomas Fidone II. And he can do so many different things, right? So I think this is a fantastic pick too. So, and then you get Corey Black, cornerback out of Oklahoma State, late in the draft. So this is an outstanding draft by the Giants. The question is your general manager and coach going to have an opportunity to coach these players more than 1 year? That's the question, because you drafted all these players. Then the next GM comes in here and he's like, well, I didn't love these dudes. I didn't draft these guys. They're not my guys. So we know how that shit goes. We could sit here and they could say, well, look, these guys are Giants, this, that, and the third. That sounds good. But at the end of the day, if you didn't draft them, you're not tied to them. Their futures aren't guaranteed on that roster. So you go to the Jets next. Obviously, they got a whole organizational facelift this year with a new GM and a new head coach. So obviously, they're in the process of kind of turning things over there, trying to figure some things out on the fly. Armin Membo in the 1st round. Obviously, last year they went the veteran route with Aaron Rodgers. At the quarterback position in the veteran route at tackle with Morgan Moses coming over, as well as the tackle from Dallas at the left tackle position. So Tyron Smith. So both of those guys are out of there. You drafted the kid out of Penn State last year who played guard. Now he can kick out to left tackle. Armin Membo goes to right tackle, and you may have your bookend tackles for Justin Fields. So I love the pick, and I love them kind of preparing themselves for this. Mason Taylor at the tight end position, solid pick there. I wasn't the biggest Mason Taylor fan, but I do think he's going to be a good, solid NFL pro. And as I've already said, I love guys with NFL bloodlines. The biggest difference here is he's not playing the same position as dad played. So it's a little bit different here, but I just love guys with NFL bloodlines. Azariah Thomas, big, physical boundary corner that doesn't run very well, but I think he has a chance to be really good at this level. We'll see how they utilize him. He'll be playing opposite of Sauce Gardner, so he's going to get, if he's in there. And they went out and got Brandon Stevens in free agency, so I don't think Azariah Thomas will be asked to come out and start right away, which is a good thing. Give him a chance to kind of acclimate himself to the NFL level first, but eventually they probably see him as, a boundary corner in this league. And the question will be, can he hold up opposite of Sauce Gardner? Because we know teams aren't going to just come out and willy-nilly target Sauce. They're going to the guy opposite of him. And you better be able to stand up tall and strong and broad if you're going to play against one of the better corners in the league. So on the opposite side of one of the better corners in the league. So we'll see. But Azariah Thomas has a lot of traits, not a lot of ball production, but again, there are some workable traits there. I thought this was a complete reach in the 4th round. I hated this pick. I haven't said that very many times this draft, but Arian Smith in the 4th round is ridiculous, utterly ridiculous. Didn't have the production at Georgia. Had issues catching a football. He can flat out fly, and that's probably why they drafted him. But this is bad utilization of a pick in a draft that was deep with a bunch of receivers that could run. They were better. I can't say if Dante Thornton Jr. and that's just a name I remember going in the 4th round to the Raiders. I'm not sure if he went off the board right before they did. I'm about to check right now and see, but see where he went off the board. 108th. So he went off the board maybe 2 picks before them. So maybe that was the guy they were targeting and he was gone and they wanted speed, so they went to the next guy. But there were other receivers on the board at the time of this pick that offered you 4.3 speed if that's what you were, into, that offer you better ability to be a real threat at the receiver position at the NFL level. Now, Arian Smith can also return punts. Maybe that was something they were interested in, but that still doesn't justify you taking him in the 4th round. But hey, to each its own. Hopefully it works out for them. I thought that was not a good utilization of a mid-round pick in a draft where you should be coming away with a starter. I had the conversation with you guys. If you had a pick in each of the first 4 rounds, you should be coming away with no less than 3 starters, right? I don't see Arian Smith as a legitimate NFL starting wide receiver in this league. I don't. So, I don't love that pick. Malachi Moore, I do love this pick. I think he's a really versatile safety with great ball production, does everything at a high enough level that suggests that he's going to ultimately get on the field sooner rather than later. And so I kind of think he fits in that Jets defense. And obviously with a defensive-minded, defensive backs head coach in Aaron Glenn, I think Malachi Moore is the type of guy that he probably loves and thinks we can get the most out of this kid. So with his versatility, I can see him getting on the field very quickly for this Jets defense. Francisco Marigoa, linebacker out of Miami, bigger linebacker, physicality. Started out his career at as most Samoans do, right? He was at Washington State, like Frankie Louvu and so many countless others that go there. Transferred over to Miami late in his career. Big guy, like 6'1", 6'2", 230, 36 pounds. Another one of these bigger linebackers inside that's physical. Space limitations, not the greatest athlete. So first and second down is probably going to be where he is able to make a mark if he's able to do so. But I don't hate the pick. And the Jets are always good. They were the ones that had Frankie Louvu first, right? They are always good for one of these Samoan linebackers. So 5th round, Tyler Barron, edge out of Miami. And again, 5th round, he was one of like the final guys that was left at the edge rush. Him and Fidel Diggs were like some of the, 2 of the final guys that you looked at and said, hey, if you're looking for a little bit of juice off the edge, these are kind of the guys that'll be left toward the end of the draft if you didn't get one in the first, 4 or 5 rounds. He's interesting. He fits the Jets' DNA profile of what they usually go after with edge rushers. He's a guy that I think might be better suited standing up at the NFL level, but he had his hand down in the dirt at Miami as well. They moved him around. Good athleticism, good closing speed on the quarterback, and we'll see if he can develop for them because he's got the talent. He's got the talent. It's a good draft. It's a good, solid draft for the Jets. I don't love the Arian Smith pick, but outside of that, Membo's a starter, Taylor's a starter, Thomas, I think eventually will become a starter, and Malachi Moore, I think, could easily be an immediate starter. So I still feel like you came away with some good stuff if you are the New York Jets. Philadelphia Eagles, Super Bowl defending champion Philadelphia Eagles. They did what they customarily do, and that's murdered the draft. This is another standard Howie Roseman production here. And the thing about their picks every year is that they make sense, and you can see what the thought process was. Like, you don't have to guess. Like, I just questioned the Arian Smith. Like, what are you guys doing? What was the purpose behind this? You don't ever have to do that with a Howie Roseman selection. Even if you don't love it, it makes sense still, right? Jahad Campbell, he wanted this guy like crazy, was trying to trade up from like pick 22 all the way to 31, where he ultimately traded up with the Chiefs one spot to get the very diverse Alabama linebacker, who I think only fell on draft boards because he just had surgery recently. But there's a lot of talent there, man. And he's a guy that gives the Eagles something that they really haven't had, which is scary. They haven't really had the dynamic athletic linebacker, right? Zach Bond was that for them last year. But he's not Jahad Campbell. Zach Bond isn't. So from an athletic standpoint. So he's a different breed, right? He kind of fits in that mold with Micah Parsons and Abdul Carter in the division. And so, and knowing that you have to play against Jaden Daniels and how Jaden Daniels hurt them last year, you can't tell me that this isn't a Jaden Daniels pick right here. This is strictly done. Everybody in the division wanted one because they know they got to deal with Jaden Daniels for the next 10 to 12 years, minimum. Andrew Makuba out of Texas. This is a C.D. Johnson pick right here. This is a direct reflection of needing to replace him. He's such a big part of their defense. And this is a good football player right here. Tremendous ball production. He's not Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. I repeat, he is not CJ. However, he has the ball skills of a CJ. But he's not. He'll come down and hit you, but he's not the physical enforcer that CJ was. He doesn't take the proper angles like CJ did. But he's also not the head case. He's not the headache in the locker room, which is why they had to move on from him in the first place. So he's going to come in here, damn good football player, tremendous ball production. He's more of a robber type of, which that fits what the Eagles are looking for, right? Somebody to take the football away. And there weren't many safeties in the league in college football that did it better than Andrew Makuba. So, again, great pick. Ty Robinson, I love this dude out of Nebraska. I love this guy. This dude plays with such a nasty disposition along the defensive line. It's not even funny. I watched him ragdoll so many offensive linemen and then get to the ball carrier or get to the quarterback. He just plays the game in a way that it's hard to ignore. Like, there's nothing flashy about his game. It's all business, but he kicks ass. And on a defensive front where it's just already a bunch of talented dudes that kick ass, he's going to fit right in, man. Like, he's such a good football player. Again, I get it, man, right? You lose Milton Williams, you get a Ty Robinson. Problem solved, right? Like, it's what they do, right? Mac McWilliams, this isn't my favorite pick of their draft. I get it, right? Nickel corner, got some speed, good click and close ability underneath, which is what they're going to use him for. They play a ton of, cover four, right, where they're keeping everything in front of them, and you need guys underneath that can see it and react to it and go get it. And Mac McWilliams has that kind of ability. That's pretty much it in a nutshell. Like, I don't think he can go outside and survive. Right? I think he's more of a nickel. That's what I think they see him as, and so I think that's what they're bringing him in to do. Right? Smell Mondin Jr. out of Georgia, another fast linebacker, man. 6 feet, 6'1", 220 some odd pounds. Another one of these dudes that can just run, right? Um, again, this to me is another pick for the division. When you're dealing with Jaden Daniels, you're dealing with athletic quarterbacks, and then now the Giants have just selected one. The Cowboys traded for one. Like, you just need to make sure you got dudes that can run. That's what this division is turning into. You better have dudes that can run, specifically at the linebacker position. Um, hell, that's part of the problem the Commanders had last year. They didn't have enough guys that can run at the linebacker position. They're hoping to rectify that this year. But this is another dude with tremendous ability to run, can blitz. He's solid in coverage. So just throw him in the mix at the linebacker position. It's a position that the Eagles, for a very long time, have not really coveted. They don't re-sign linebackers, or haven't in the past. Zach Bond, they did re-sign last year, but looks like they're putting a little bit more emphasis on the linebacker position here, as you can see, with both Campbell and Mondin Jr. Even though Campbell's going to be more of an edge guy that they kind of move around, so to speak. Love this pick in the 5th round of Drew Kendall out of Boston College. If he were drafted anywhere else, I'm telling you, he's a starting center in this league. And I think this is a direct reaction to the playoffs last year. If you recall, they were banged up on the interior, and they didn't have an answer. They had to play musical chairs on the interior of their offensive line, and guys had to play through injuries because they didn't really have the depth on the interior, which is surprising for the Eagles. They usually have depth up and down their offensive line, but they were able to get through it. Guys were able to play through some of their injuries and get them through to the Super Bowl ultimately and win it. But Drew Kendall, again, another bloodline guy. I told you late in the draft, if I'm gonna lose, if I'm gonna be wrong, I'm gonna err on the side of a guy that has a father that played in the league. Drew Kendall's dad, Pete Kendall, played in the league for a very long time and was a damn good interior offensive lineman. And his son is just technically sound, and he gets it. And I was telling anybody during the draft process, like, hey, if you're looking for a center later in the draft, Drew Kendall is who you should be looking for. Like, he ain't the best athlete in the world, but technically he just gets it. He's where he's supposed to be when he's supposed to be there. He knows angles. He knows his deficiencies. He minimizes them. But he plays in Philadelphia, so he shouldn't be starting and he shouldn't be seeing the field. But I like him a lot. I like him a lot. And like I said, if he was playing anywhere other than Philadelphia, he'd probably be starting. Kyle McCord. The Eagles love taking, quarterbacks late in the draft just about every other year or so. Like, this is a customary practice for them. And I like this pick because talent-wise, he's better than any quarterback on the roster not named Jalen Hurts, right? That includes Tanner McKee. He's a better pure prospect than Tanner McKee, is. So from a talent perspective, he upgrades that quarterback room. Obviously didn't get it done at Ohio State, then went to Syracuse and, did set all kinds of records and played extremely well with less talent around him. So when you look at Kyle McCord, solid athlete, good arm talent, played in an offense that allowed you to see the projection. It made it easy for you to be able to say, okay, these are the pro throws he can make. These are some of the things he struggles with. But I think that he's got the capability to be a low-end NFL starter, but he's more of a good NFL backup, and I think this is a good spot for him, to be honest with you. A really good spot for him. Miles Hinton, tackle out of Michigan. He just strikes me as a Philadelphia Eagle, right? Like, these next two picks, Hinton and Williams. Hinton easily could end up playing guard. He's got experience at tackle. He's the left tackle at Michigan. If I'm not mistaken, his dad played in the league for the Colts. I'm not sure. That name rings a bell. I think his dad might have played in the league for a number of years too, and was actually really good. I could be tripping, but it could be another one of these Drew Kendall type situations where you err on the side of, hey man, dude that his dad played in the league at the same position, who's gonna pass down all of his knowledge to his son, make sure that he's, you know, he's technically sound, understands, you know, the do's and don'ts. And Hinton, he's just one of those dudes. You send him to Stoutland U, he's only going to get better. And he looks the part. And I swear his dad played in the league. And I just love dudes whose dad played in the league and played for 10, 11, 12 years, that they just know how to get the shit done. So just another good pick. And then speaking of another good pick, Cameron Williams, he should have went back to school. He had no business coming out in this draft. That's why he fell to the 6th round. But if you look at his body type and you look at his traits, this dude is a starter in the league with 2 years of, you know, going to school. If he goes, well, guess what? He didn't go back to school, but he went to Stoutland U. He graduated to a different school, one that's going to prepare him for the pros at an elite level. If he is what I think he can be starting in Philadelphia at right tackle when Lane Johnson decides that. This is what the pick is, right? They drafted Cameron Williams. This is the shit that they do, right? Nobody does it better than the Eagles. They drafted Cameron Williams to go to school at Stoutland U for the next year or two while, you know, we play this song and dance with Lane Johnson like they did with Jason Kelsey, where they didn't know, but they already had his replacement kind of hanging around. That's what they're doing here with Cameron Williams. They're going to coach this dude up, get his ass ready. And if Lane Johnson decides next year I'm done, or 2 years down, here comes Cameron Williams. We'll be like, where the hell did this dude come from? Oh, they had him drafting and stashed, right? Draft and stash. Working with his ass. And this dude's 6'5", 6'6", you know, 325, 35 inch. Like, what are we talking about, man? He's just young, wet behind the ears, and his breath smells like Similac. Just send him back to school. What, they sending him to Stoutland U? Makes me sick, but I know what it is. APR, 6th round. Love the pick. So another hometown kid from the 7 cities. So I'm rooting for him. Unfortunately, he plays for the enemy, right? It's the same thing with Josh Sweat. Josh Sweat was from the city. Loved him, but he played for the Eagles. It was hard to root for him, but you know, you always root for the dudes that's from the city. He's not from Norfolk like Josh. Josh Sweat was from Chesapeake. So he's still from the 7 cities. He's from Portsmouth. It's APR, but damn, he's explosive off the edge. One of these dudes that just knew how to find a quarterback in college football. Hey, one season he had like 16 sacks. I think last year he might have had 16 sacks. Like, this dude his closing burst is crazy. We're gonna see if he got shorter arms, so we'll see if, you know, the production he had at Virginia Tech translates to the NFL. But generally, if you know how to get to the quarterback, you know how to get to the quarterback. So we're gonna see. I mean, this is a sickening pick if you hate the Eagles, because this is tremendous value here in the 6th round. Like, just up and down this draft is tremendous value. Good football players, and again, you can see the vision with all of them. In APR, you move on from Josh Sweat. Okay, cool. We'll throw Antoine Powell-Ryland in there. We got Jahad Campbell. We'll find a way. Don't worry. We'll figure it out. And this feels like more of a replacement for Bryce Huff. Like, yeah, we missed on the undersized edge rusher in free agency a couple years ago. We need to move on from his ass. This feels like his replacement. Less of a Josh Sweat replacement. But either way, APR has a chance to be a problem. So there's that. That's a hell of a draft for the Eagles, man. Who are we kidding? That is a fantastic draft. Steelers. Derek Harmon, like, we understand Casey Hayward's getting up there in age. We knew they were taking a defensive tackle. We just didn't know which one they were taking. So they got their guy. You move on there. And he kind of plays in the mold. And I said that Like he plays in the mold of a Steeler or a Raven. Caleb Johnson, excellent pick in the 3rd round. Man, this is a great pick. They need a dog at running back and a guy that can, give them more juice and pop than they were getting from Najee Harris. It just wasn't enough for me, right? And not that the Steelers had the best run blocking offensive line, but you weren't maximizing the runs. I think you can do that now with Caleb Johnson. This is an upgrade for them. Jack Sawyer, gritty, rough around the edges, edge out of Ohio State. I don't love him, but he'll be a good player for the Steelers. He kind of fits their mentality. He belongs in the AFC North, this Jack Sawyer. Yaya Black, again, another big space eating. This dude's what, 6'6", 335 with 35-inch arms. Like, yeah, he feels like a Steeler, right? One of these guys is gonna play the nose for you, clog up space, try to get his arms in the passing lane. Like, it just feels like another Steeler, right? Will Howard in the 6th round. I am very confused as to what the hell the Steelers are doing in the quarterback position. Like, this is Kenny Pickett all over again right here. Like, you don't do anything with this. Now, again, they didn't draft Will Howard in the 6th round to be a starter, so I'm not tripping like they spent the 1st round pick on Kenny Pickett, but this is the same guy, right? Only difference is this guy was able to win a national championship, made all the winning plays, played his ass off in that postseason, and, did what he needed to do to put his team in a position to hoist that trophy. But he's an NFL backup quarterback at best. So that tells me that Aaron Rodgers is on the way at some point. But yeah, I just talked about drafting dudes late in the draft. If you're going to fail with dudes with NFL pedigree and DNA, right? Carson Brunner, linebacker out of Washington, father played, coincidentally enough, I don't think it's a coincidence, for the Steelers for many years. And Mark Brunner went to Washington, so he was 2nd generation there. But his dad was a tight end, and he's a linebacker. But obviously his dad is going to be able to kind of teach him some things and, show him the ropes and also help that transition from college to being a pro. And so I take a strong liking to guys like that, especially late in the draft. And then Dante Kent is a cornerback out of Central Michigan that had a really good pro day. I think he ran a 4.38, jumped 38.5 on the vert. He's undersized, but I think that's a guy that they, throw in the mix, special teams first and foremost, and then, see if he can help as a corner at some point down the road. We'll see. But that's the Steelers draft. I love the Caleb Johnson pick. Derek Harmon makes a ton of sense. Jack Sawyer, again, this isn't a needle moving draft for me though. But I again, it feels Steeler-esque to me. 49ers. Long list of guys here. Let's knock them down quickly. So you could see the emphasis for this draft if you just look at it, face value. Let's get bigger in the trenches. Let's reshape this defense. They weren't good enough defensively last year. That's an understatement. Teams were coming in there, running the scoreboard up, doing whatever the hell they wanted to do to this 49ers defense. And so they wanted to get better on defense. So Mykel Williams, one of the guys that I thought is just scratching the surface, arrows pointing up, is going to be a hell of a pro. They take him at 11. Love the pick. Alfred Collins, I just talked about that with Vernon Broughton, who was drafted by the Saints. They played behind the defensive tackle that the Rams took in the 1st round a couple of years ago, and Trevondre Sweat, who the Titans took in the 2nd round, I believe, a couple of years ago. So they had to wait their time, but Alfred Collins looks the part, right? He looks the part of a disruptive NFL defensive tackle. Just hasn't had a lot of opportunities to play. This was his lone year as the full starter at Texas. Nick Martin, linebacker out of Oklahoma State, athletic guy, 6'1" or so, 220 pounds roughly, somewhere in that neighborhood, 222, 224, something like that. This is their Dre Greenlaw replacement. That's exactly what this is. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. All right. Their defense runs better when they're at full strength at linebacker, and they just haven't been really since that Super Bowl when he went down with that injury, right? Upton Stout, cornerback out of Western Kentucky. I don't love this pick in the 3rd round. Now, he played primarily boundary corner at Western Kentucky. He's quick as shit. He's fast as hell. Got good ball production, but he's undersized, like 5'8", and let's just call him 5'9". 5'9", like a $185, $180, $185, something like that. This is a nickel, but I don't know if they drafted him to be a nickel or not. If they're telling me they drafted, well, I don't have enough nickel like tape. The nickel ain't for everybody. It's easy to just take a dude that was a boundary corner in college and say, well, he's undersized, to stick him inside. You don't know if he can do that shit or not. The nickel is not for everybody. So this is one of those get back to me on that one picks, right? Where I got to see it first. Because if you're trying to stick a 5'9" corner outside, good luck with that. Good luck with that. CJ West, defensive tackle out of Indiana. He's one of those, again, here we are reshaping his defense, right? Another defensive tackle. He's got one of those, shorter, plotty frames, not the tallest guy in the world, but, finds the football, not supremely gifted, but good short area quickness. He's an ascending player out of Indiana. Is CJ West. Very solid pick there. I can't stand the way that Kyle Shanahan drafts receivers. I think they consistently reach on wide receivers. They did it in the 2nd round a while back with one of those receivers out of Washington when they took him in the 2nd round, and it was a big whiff. They consistently whiff at receiver through the 49ers. I'm not saying that this is that, but again, in the 4th round, where I just thought there were a lot of guys that offered you what Jordan Watkins offers you. I don't hate the pick. I don't love it though. I just thought there were better options available. And this is where I think Kyle Shanahan struggles. I think he and John Lynch struggle at finding receivers, right? Unless they get them early, 1st or 2nd round, they struggle. They hit on one late round receiver, Juwan Jennings. The rest of these guys they've struggled with. They don't find gems in the mid rounds, generally speaking, because they do shit like this. We'll see if Jordan Watkins turns out to be what they envision him being. He ran really well at the combine. He's a tremendous route runner, which means a lot to Kyle Shanahan for his offense. They had trouble separating from man-to-man coverage, especially once they had the injury to Brandon Ayuk. So we'll see if Watkins can come in here and do the dirty work like he did at Ole Miss, right? Trey Harris was the vertical guy that ran a lot of the simple shit, and he did all of the intricate stuff. Let's see if he can do that for the 49ers and kind of give them a little bit of what they're going to be missing without Deebo Samuel, right? We'll see. They're not the same player, though. So Jordan James. I like this pick. I like him as a running back, and I think he's one of those nondescript backs in this draft that's so deep. He doesn't do anything great, but he does everything average to above average. Doesn't have tremendous top end speed, but he's got tremendous quickness. He runs the football like a professional NFL running back, and so he'll be a good change of pace. Another option out of the backfield. They got a bunch of guys that can run and do different things, but Jordan James can catch it out of the back. He gives you that versatility that you lacked when there was no Christian McCaffrey, right? He gives you that. He's not as fast as any of your other backs. He's not as fast as Isaac Guerrero. He's not as fast as McCaffrey, but he can catch out of the backfield and do some of those things that Guerrero didn't offer you when the injuries started to take effect last year. Marquise Siegel out of K-State is he's interesting. I like him a lot. I think he flies around. He has one of those safety builds. He looks like he's a safety. Can cover over the slot. A little undersized, so if you put a big tight end on him, he could struggle there. But I like his movement skills. I like his play demeanor. I like his IQ. I think he's a guy that could come in here and give him 2 years. He could be a guy that fills in for a Talanoa Hufanga who left in free agency. So This is what Kyle Shanahan is exceptional at, finding guys that fit his scheme at the quarterback position. So Curtis Rourke, who was the quarterback at Indiana last year, played well, although he played on a torn ACL, played through that, had surgery this offseason. And the only reason I know that is because we played them in the playoffs, and he was asked in that game, and he was asked for a reason because he had torn ACL, which we didn't know at the time. So you got to go back to his 2023 tape if you really want to see how effective he can be. He's a rhythmic passer, not the biggest arm in the world, but you don't have to, as we know with Brock Purdy, you don't have to have the biggest arm in the world. You just have to be on time and accurate with the football, which he can do, has good size, good pocket mobility. So another guy that kind of fits in the quarterback room in San Francisco. And then you got a guard out of Iowa. Never bad idea to take an offensive lineman out of Iowa. And then Junior Bergen, Montana wide receiver, prolific, one of the most prolific punt returners in FCS history. 8 returns for touchdowns, including 3 last year, but which is why they brought him in, just to return punts. We'll see if he can do that at the NFL level. It's one thing to do in FCS. It's another thing to do it in FBS, which you don't see because the athletes are better. And then it's a whole nother thing to do it in the NFL. Seattle Seahawks. Go through this real quick. Gray Zabel, 5-tool offensive lineman. Love it. Knew he was going in the first round. He's a guard at the NFL level. They're looking to bolster that offensive line. You'll see that as we go through this draft. Nick Amanawari, safety out of South Carolina. I love this pick as well. He's a dog. And I think you got to think about who their coach is, right? Mike McDonald. And he's, they had so much success in Baltimore defensively, and I think he's trying to find those guys. Nick Amanawari could be similar to what Kyle Hamilton is, and was in that Baltimore defense, kind of that chess piece guy you move around. So he'll be interesting. Elijah Arroyo, tight end out of Miami. I love him. I thought he was one of the best tight ends in this draft class. So as long as he's healthy, obviously he had the ACL a couple years ago, but as long as he's healthy, which he looked at the end of last season, he's going to be a big problem. Love that addition to their offense. Milroe is so interesting because they said he's a quarterback, which I agree. And I see the Colin Kaepernick thing where they're going to put in some packages for this kid. Like Sam Darnold's your quarterback. Who gives a shit, right? You got to find every advantage, every way to maximize, and that's what Milroe's going to do. You can come in there, have him throw a couple passes, also have him run it, right? And the threat of him running is going to suck the defense up. Guys might be wide open. So I get it, and I understand what they're going to do, and I'm anxious to see it. I'm really anxious to see his development. They're going to have him doing the VR training, reportedly. We'll see if he can develop, right, and turn into a real pro quarterback, or if he'll just be a gimmicky guy his entire career. Or we'll see. Or will he end up being a guy that makes a positional switch 4 years into his career? Who knows? Doesn't feel that way right now, but I like the pick. Riley Mills, defensive tackle out of Notre Dame. This is a guy whose arrow is pointing upwards. Was a full-time starter this past year for the first time and really, truly took advantage of it, led the team in sacks. We really missed him down the stretch. He got injured and wasn't able to perform for us in the playoffs, and that shit hurt, man, because we were struggling defensively, and we missed his presence. And this is a guy that I think is a good football player, just a really good, solid football player. Nothing really stands out other than he plays hard. He knows where to be. He knows angles. He uses his hands just good enough. Like, he does a lot of good things. I think he could be a good pro for 8 to 10 years in this league. Torrey Horton, wide receiver out of Colorado State, can run. I don't love him. Just be honest. I didn't love him coming out of Colorado State. He's not a physical receiver. Doesn't really want any contact, which, again, I'm not beating him up for that. But you didn't really see him, do some of the things that I would like to see from a receiver. He doesn't block. He doesn't really do the physical things, right? He wants to be free to run and do those types of things. And that's just not how it works, especially at the NFL level. But he can run. He can catch. And so if you can get him out in space, look out. Robbie Oots is quintessential blocking tight end. That is exactly what he was drafted to do. That's what he's going to do at the NFL level. And so we'll see if he pans out as a strictly blocking tight end. All right, ran a 4.9 at the combine. He is a blocking tight end in every sense of the word. Bryce Cable and Mason Rickman are one and the same. They're both guards at the NFL level. Throw a couple darts at the dartboard late in the draft with former tackles that are going to be guards at the NFL level and see what happens and see if any of them stick. Damian Martinez, love this pick. You just drafted James Conner in the 7th round. This is an awesome pick. He fits into those kind of running backs that they already have in Seattle, right? I think he has a chance to be really good in the NFL. Damian Martinez. This could be a sleeper pick here. We look back and say, damn, they got Damian, sort of like how we felt about Isaiah Pacheco. Like, damn, the Chiefs got him in the 7th round. That's what we might be saying about Damian Martinez with the Seattle Seahawks. Damn, they got him in the 7th round? Yeah, they did. Ricky White III, highly productive wide receiver out of UNLV, but he's undersized and he's not fast, right? He ran a 4.6. He's like 5'10", 5'11", $190, right? So he's undersized. He's not fast, but super productive in college. I just struggle to see how he's going to figure it out at the NFL level with not having big time speed. You're undersized, so guys can treat you and disrespect you, treat you like a rag doll, disrespect you at the line of scrimmage. I just don't see how he's going to be able to win consistently at the NFL level, but I'm pretty sure he's been doubted all of his life. So see if he uses that as motivation. Bucks draft, nice and compact, straight to the point. And you see what it was. 2 receivers, 2 corners, 2 edges. Like, they knew what they needed. They went out, they doubled up on all of them and got out. Emeka Egbuka, I said, is probably the most polished, ready to go at the receiver position in this draft. I said it wouldn't shock me if he came in, had 73 catches for 1,100 yards in his rookie season. He's ready to go right out of the packaging, right? Benjamin Morrison, one of the better corners in this draft, but obviously the injury that he had late in, or he had in his final year at Notre Dame, kind of halted what was a conversation about him potentially being a 1st-round pick. Ball production is there. They need cornerback play. Morrison has that ability. I'm excited about the pick for the Bucks. Jacob Parrish, another guy that plays the cornerback position, a little undersized. He may be more of a nickel prospect, but he's a dog, man. He plays with a dog mentality. He's just undersized. That's it. Like, he can run. He's always around the football, highly competitive. He'll come up and tackle. You can blitz him. You can do a lot of things with him. I just think he's going to have to thrive at playing inside as a nickel, but I love the pick here too. David Walker reminds me so much of another former Buck that ate good in Shaq Barrett. Undersized guy that got it done in the FCS at Central Arkansas, started out at Southern Arkansas and went to Central Arkansas and had a very productive collegiate career. Now he's going to get a chance. The Bucks need pass rush, and they need it bad. And it's funny because they got another undersized pass rusher. Now, Hassan Reddick is undersized in the height and length department, but weight-wise, David Walker is only undersized in the height department, not in the weight department. So, but it's still another guy that had to overcome some, limitations, and that'll be good tutelage for him. But we'll see if he can win at the rate that he won in college at the NFL level. Elijah Roberts is more of your traditional defensive end, but even in that sense, he's kind of a tweener, right? Because they asked him to stand up at SMU a ton. They moved him around. I don't see them asking him to stand up in this defense. Will he put his hand in the dirt? Will he be a defensive tackle, defensive end? They moved him around. Maybe they'll be able to do that. Obviously, they see him as an edge, and he looks like the Anthony Nelson type edge that they like in Tampa, right? That big physical edge that can be stout against the run, which is why Tampa always stops the run, because they usually prioritize that first before getting to the quarterback, which is why they don't never get to the damn quarterback, or not at least at the rate they would like to. Elijah Roberts kind of fits in that mold, so it's another Tampa Bay Buccaneer-esque pick, if you ask me. Tez Johnson. This to me feels like, hey, we did it last year. Let's see if we can't do it again. Take a Oregon players whose stock was descending, right? That fell and plummeted because of poor testing, but we know they're a good football player. They did it with Bucky Irving last year, got him in the 5th round. We saw how that panned out for him. Tez Johnson, highly productive wide receiver at Oregon, undersized, like one of the lightest players ever at the combine, and then he runs a 4.5. That shit ain't gonna cut it. You're gonna be that small, you better be running a 4.3 something, let alone a 4.5, right? So that plummeted his stock. I said, I don't know if Tez Johnson's getting drafted. Well, he got drafted in the 7th round. He can play football. And so they're hoping that lightning strikes twice for them, where they take advantage of people putting too much emphasis on speed from a former Oregon prospect that had a very good career and just didn't get drafted because he did not test well. So that is the Buccaneers draft. That's a solid draft. 2 receivers, 2 corners, 2 edge rushers. Titans. We knew what they were all about. They took Cam Ward, the best quarterback prospect in this draft class. We'll see how that turns out. Talked about him getting Warren Moon's number, so he'll be number 1 at the NFL level. We'll be watching him very closely as the number 1 overall pick. Oluwafemi Oladejo, edge out of UCLA, is an ascending player. Made the switch to edge rusher like 3-4 games into the season, so he didn't even have a full year of playing edge under his belt. You can see some of the rawness, some of the indecisiveness, but what you can't question is the leadership, the juice that he brings, and the athleticism. And I think these are all things that allowed him to find himself selected here in the 2nd round. And if they didn't take him, someone else was going to take him in the 2nd round. He was he was ascending at a very high and rapid rate in the draft. Kevin Winston Jr., physical safety from Penn State. Injury cut his season short last year, but does a lot of things that NFL teams covet, especially down around the line of scrimmage as a physical enforcer, a guy that can play away from the line of scrimmage a little bit, but his home is in that intermediate to short area where he can really be a disruptor, an enforcer, and a guy that's consistently around the football. Tremere DK, I thought this was a little early for him, but I actually liked him better than his teammate. So I understand why he was drafted. I just don't know if I understand why he was drafted in the 4th round here. Now, he can flat out run. I like a lot of his qualities. I just didn't think, again, some of these 4th round picks with some of the guys that still were on the board, a little head scratching, I'm not going to lie. But I understand why they took him. He feels like a replacement for the 3 name receiver that just left to go to the Dolphins. Like, he's that kind of player to me. So they're hoping to strike twice with that kind of a player, because that's how I see him. A speed guy that can get vertical, that can do a little bit of everything. Nothing great, but he can run, right? He can run, and he's tough as nails. I like Tremere DK. Gunnar Helm, good tight end prospect. Didn't run as well as I thought he was going to at the combine. Really disappointed in how he ran. I think that hurt his stock a little bit. Had he ran better, I think he would have been a 2nd round pick. But the talent is definitely there. The production is definitely there. And you can see how he was utilizing that Texas offense and how that translates to the NFL level. I think he's going to be a really good confidant, a really good safety blanket for Cam Ward early in his career. Alec Ayomanor, a wide receiver out of Stanford, height, weight, speed guy. Obviously, the 2023 game against Travis Hunter is what kind of made him a household name, so to speak. Just another guy you throw into the mix at the receiver position and see if they can, find enough talent around Cam Ward to help him early on in his career. Jackson Slater, guard out of Sacramento State. You throw in a guard prospect here that you want to continue to work with, develop, and hopefully him be a starter for you down the road, maybe in a year or two. Marcus Harris, cornerback out of California. This is the 3rd player in that Cal secondary, and then you throw in Teddy Buchanan at the linebacker position. That's a lot of talent coming out of Cal. Another guy that just knows how to find the football, knows how to play, came from Idaho, transferred over to Cal, played a lot of college football, got his hands on a lot of balls throughout his career. Really intriguing pick late in the draft that could ultimately turn out to be a good player for them. And then Khalil Mullings, running back out of Michigan, He turned out to be the best Michigan Wolverine running back this year. And that's a big surprise because everyone thought it was going to be Donovan Edwards. Everybody thought it was Donovan Edwards' time to shine. He came back to school when he could have left, and it didn't work out for him. He didn't get drafted, but Khalil Mullins did. And he actually is a bigger back at like 6'1", 225, but he moves really well, got a good burst. He's not like a home run threat guy, but you give him some space, he can operate, and he runs the ball physically. I think he's going to be a really good complement to what they already have at the running back position in Tennessee. That's a good draft by the Titans. That's a really good draft. And if you've been a fan of this channel, then you already know this is a bread, egg, cheese, milk type of draft. Connerly Jr. for the Commanders at the tackle position allows them to fortify their offensive line, put people where they probably belong, like Brandon Coleman, their third-round pick last year, who played left tackle. They're going to give him an opportunity to play right tackle, but Connerly probably comes in, plays right tackle, puts Coleman where he probably belongs at guard. Same could be said with Trey Amos, second-round pick. A lot of people thought could go in the first round, fell to the Commanders in the second round, has a chance to be a really good player, one of the steals at the cornerback position in the first 2 days of the draft. He's going to go out, play boundary opposite of Marshawn Lattimore, allow them to kick last year's second-round pick inside, and Mikey Sainristil. Jalen Lane, fourth-round pick. Again, I've said this about a number of fourth-round wide receivers that were taken. Were there other guys that were on the board that may have been more talented as natural wide receivers? Yes. But Jalen Lane offers them something that they don't currently have, a punt returner, and also a guy that does have production as a receiver, and a guy that you can get it to in a multitude of ways. They like his speed. They wanted to add speed. They like his punt returning ability, and they like his ability to just make something happen with the ball in his hand, something that they coveted and really put a lot of emphasis on. So that pick could be really big for them. Kane Medrano, athletically gifted linebacker, tested the best of any linebacker at the combine, ran a 4.46 at 6'3", 222 pounds. He's a guy that has a safety build, plays the linebacker position. In today's NFL, we see that a ton, where you got these linebackers that look like safeties that run like a defensive back. And it's ever evolving NFL, and you need players like Kane Medrano. It feels like special teams is where he's going to have to cut his teeth in order to give him an opportunity to have an impact as a linebacker. But it's still a really intriguing pick late in the draft, which is what I look for. Height, weight, speed specimens late in the draft. Kane Medrano personifies that in every sense of the word. And then Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, running back out of Arizona, I think could ultimately be the steal of the draft, the entire draft. This is a guy that I think can be a starting NFL running back. I think he is exactly what the Commanders are looking for at the position, and he'll be a great complement to what they already currently have. Offers them a little bit of speed and burst, the ability to make people miss in tight, confined spaces, has a lot of tread left on his tires despite being a 24-year-old rookie. This right here could be a game changer for a Commanders team looking to upgrade the running back position. So really good draft for the Commanders, even though it was very compacted. And that, my friends, is the draft in a nutshell for me. Do have one super chat that I need to get to, and we'll get out of here. The Big Back, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes, anyone got a good burger sauce recipe? Talking to the wrong guy. I put avocado or guac on my burger, and depending on what kind of size we got, if we got baked beans or some crazy shit, I'll throw that up there too. But it ain't too many sauces I'm putting on my burger. So yeah, that's for the rest of y'all out in the comment section. If y'all got a good burger recipe, a burger sauce recipe, put it down in the comment section for my guy, the Big Back. Anyway, I digress. That's going to do it for me, your man Louie T, here on the 501st installment of the Louie T Network podcast. I look forward to joining you guys either tomorrow or Wednesday for sure. We got a lot more to discuss. So until then, I'm your man Louie T, signing off. See you guys next time. Peace.